My son said I was too slow to manage the family business. I agreed and let him take over. 6 months later, the auditors arrived. His confidence turned to fear. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm 69 years old. I walk a little slower than I used to, and I like to read the fine print twice. My hands are big and rough from hauling boxes in the early days, and my back complains when I stand too long. People say I smile with my whole face. I ran Reed & Sons Wholesale for 4 decades with 2 rules: pay on time and never lie. I am not fancy. I am steady. I know the names of the forklift drivers and the birthdays of their kids. If you ask me who I am, I'll say, I'm a father. I'm a husband who misses his wife. And I'm the man who built a warehouse that feeds families. The day the auditors walked in, the building felt colder than the walk-in freezer. It was a Monday morning in late October, 6 months to the day after I handed my son, Ethan, the keys. The leaves outside were the color of burnt sugar. Sales had been up, at least on paper. Ethan had a sharp haircut, a silver watch, and the kind of smile that made people think the future was already in his pocket. He liked loud words like disrupt and crush and dominate the market. He moved fast. He wanted everything to look like a commercial. I was in the front office, sitting in the chair by the window because I don't like to get in the way. I don't sign anything anymore. I just drink coffee and say hello to the drivers. That's when 3 people in navy suits pushed through the glass doors like a cold wind. The receptionist stood up so fast her chair rolled back. The man in the middle, gray hair, kind eyes that didn't smile, held up a folder with our company's name typed on the tab. Reed & Sons, Special Review. Good morning, he said. I'm Andrew Price from Harrington & Price. We're here for the audit. Ethan's laugh floated out of the conference room. He stepped into the lobby, still talking into his phone, still smiling. He stopped when he saw the suits. The smile froze, a case of ice around it. Confidence is a hot thing. Fear is colder. You can see when hot turns to cold. He took the phone from his ear, and the phone kept talking into the air by itself. An audit, he said. We didn't schedule. It's a surprise review, Andrew said, calm like someone who checks weather for a living. Per your compliance plan, section 4.3. Ethan's eyes flicked to me, just for a second. A tiny flash that said, Dad, did you do this? I didn't move. My heart did, though. It punched once against my ribs. The auditors walked past us, clipboards and careful steps, and the building went quiet in a way it never had before. Even the forklifts in the warehouse hummed softer, like they were listening. I watched Ethan swallow. He's taller than me, broader in the shoulders. His jaw is his mother's, beautiful and stubborn. A fine jaw can make a person think they are iron. But iron rusts, too. Mr. Reed, Andrew nodded to me, the old man by the window. Can we speak in your office? Sure, I said, but my mouth was dry. Coffee? No. Thank you, he said. This won't take long. He opened the folder. There were numbers. There were emails. There were red flags. He put a printed bank statement on the desk and tapped a line with a pen. Ethan stood behind me, breathing like a runner who doesn't want to look tired. Andrew looked up. We found a pattern, he said. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. He turned the page. And that, right there, with the paper half turned and the room cold and my son quiet behind me, is where the day opened like a trapdoor. What came next would decide who we really were. 6 months earlier, on a Sunday, my family ate dinner at my house. It was the first warm day of April, and the grass in my yard looked like it had finally forgiven winter. My daughter, Hannah, brought a fruit salad and laughed with her tongue between her teeth the way she did when she was little. My daughter-in-law, Avery, wore a pale sweater and moved around my kitchen like she'd been born in it. She took my plate and gave me more chicken without asking. She always did that. A kindness can look small. It's not. Ethan waited until dessert. He put down his spoon and looked at me like a man making a proposal that isn't really a question. Dad, he said, I love you. You built this company, but you're too slow to manage it now. The words were simple. They landed like a box of nails on a wood floor, loud, then everywhere. Avery touched his arm. Ethan, no, he said, gentle but firm. We have to be honest. He turned to me. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to protect what you built. We're in a new era. We can't wait for things to circle back. We have to move. I want to take over as CEO. Starting now. Hannah's fork hung in the air. She looked at me. Her eyes asked, Are you okay? I took a breath. I saw my wife, Linda, in my mind like she was standing in the doorway, wiping her hands on a towel and raising one eyebrow. She's been gone for 4 years, but she still visits when I have to make a choice. Linda used to say, "Kindness is not weakness, Tom." But sometimes it looks like it. I set my coffee down. "Okay," I said, "if that's what you think is best." The room moved in 2 different ways at once. Avery relaxed like she'd been holding a brick on her chest. Hannah let out a tiny sound that was half relief and half anger. Ethan blinked, surprised. He'd prepared for a fight, and I hadn't given him one. He felt like a boxer who trained for a punch that never came. "Dad," he said, "are you sure?" "I'm sure you're sure," I said. "We'll do it the right way." The right way meant lawyers and papers and signatures. It meant me stepping back to chair of the board, with no day-to-day control. It meant Ethan stepping forward into the bright part of the photo. It meant a new website, a new slogan, a new paint color on the office walls. He picked a very clean white. He said it felt fast. On my last day as CEO, the team gathered in the warehouse for cake, served on cardboard boxes. The forklift drivers clapped. The young sales guys clapped. Even the old supply manager, Rick, who has never clapped for anything, clapped. I said words. I thanked faces. I hugged big guys and small ones, and a woman from accounting who cried into my shirt. Ethan gave a speech with perfect posture. "We are moving into the future," he said. "We'll automate old systems, expand into new regions, and build partnerships that will blow this market open." People cheered. I looked at him and felt 2 things at once: pride and a small stone of fear. A father can feel both. You can love the person holding the steering wheel and still worry about the cliff you see up ahead. 2 weeks later, Ethan fired our CFO of 20 years. Her name is Linda, same as my wife. Different Linda. She's small, with gray hair she keeps in a tight twist and eyes that see through walls. She taught me double-entry bookkeeping at a wooden table at 2 a.m. the year the bank almost took our building. She is the reason 1,000 families got their checks on Fridays for 2 decades. She doesn't move fast. She moves right. Old guard, Ethan said, hands in his pockets. Great for then, not for now. We need someone who can scale. Linda saved us, I said. She saved you then, he said. I'm saving us now. He brought in a new CFO from a startup with big investors and fancy terms. The new guy wore thin glasses that looked like they'd snap if you breathed on them. He liked to say runway and burn. I thought those words belonged to planes and fire. Not long after that, Ethan cut 3 longtime suppliers and replaced them with a giant out-of-state wholesaler who promised low prices if we hit big minimums. The contract was hard to read. I tried. He said, "Dad, trust the process." He said, "We win when we scale." He said, "It's a new game." I stood in the warehouse and watched the first shipment from the new deal arrive. Pallets of canned goods, stacked so high the shrink wrap sang. The forklift beeped. The driver, Luis, who's been with me since his daughter was born, wiped his brow and said, "Boss, these pallets lean funny." He glanced at me, then at the glass office where Ethan stood with the new CFO. Luis still called me boss out of habit. Habits keep people safe. Until they don't. "Tell Ethan," I said. Luis shifted his weight. He told me to tell my supervisor. My supervisor told me to tell him in an email. "Then tell me," I said. "And I'll tell him." I walked upstairs. The new CFO smiled like a camera. Ethan was on a call, hands moving fast. "Ethan," I said, when he hung up. "Luis says the pallets are leaning." "We'll be fine, Dad," he said. "We saved 14% on that load." 14% doesn't matter if the cans end up on the floor, I said. He looked at me the way a man looks at a sign that says yield when he wants it to say go. "I'll have someone check," he said. Then he added, softer, like he was reminding me of a bedtime rule, "Let me handle it." I nodded. I went downstairs. I patted Luis on the shoulder. "Buckle them with an extra strap," I said, "just in case." That night, I walked past the break room and heard 2 sales reps whispering. "He cut Gardner's line," one said. Tom would never. Gardner had been with us since the first Reed and Sons truck. Gardner's rep had eaten barbecue in my backyard. He'd held my baby boy once, before football, and time made him heavy. Ethan said Gardner was too small for where we were headed. "Small partners slow big dreams," he told the team. The new CFO nodded like a metronome. At home, I put the kettle on. The house was quiet in the way houses get after 50 years, when the walls have learned to hold their breath. I sat at the kitchen table and felt the empty chair across from me. I sometimes speak to Linda out loud, even though it's just me and the fridge hum. Am I being stubborn? I asked the air. Or careful? My phone buzzed. A text from Avery. A photo of my grandson, James, missing his 2 front teeth and holding up a spelling test with a star on it. He asked if you can come to his game on Saturday, she wrote. He says he runs faster when Grandpa watches. I smiled. People think big things build a life. Mostly, it's small things stacked steady. 2 months into Ethan's reign, numbers looked bright. New clients, new ads, new paint. People on LinkedIn loved him. He posted pictures shaking hands with men in suits so tight the buttons looked scared. He said words like vision a lot. Customers posted comments with fire emojis. The world likes a man who looks like a winner. He looked like a winner. Then little things started to wobble. A bookkeeping clerk named Pam, who keeps Post-its in neat colors and writes like a teacher, knocked on my door. Mr. Reed, she said, eyes wide behind her glasses, we keep getting invoices with odd numbering. Not late. Not wrong on total. Just off. Tell Linda, I said, then corrected myself. Tell the new CFO. I did, she said. He said it's a new system. Okay, I said. Make a folder. Keep copies. A truck driver named Mike told me a check to a small vendor bounced for the first time in 12 years. Probably a bank error, the new CFO said. We're moving money around for acquisitions. He smiled. His glasses didn't break. In month 4, one of our oldest employees, Rick, slammed a clip of packing slips on his desk hard enough to make the stapler jump. I hadn't seen him mad since 2008. We're signing purchase orders that don't match receiving, he told me in a low voice. I flagged it twice. Nobody wants to slow down. They want to look good. Send me the list, I said. I'm not supposed to send you anything, he said, and his jaw clenched like a door locking. You don't run the floor. He was right. I didn't. But I did still care about the floor. Caring doesn't turn off when the ink dries. It just has to find a new door to walk through. I called Hannah that night. She teaches 3rd grade and has a laugh that heals paper cuts. Maybe Ethan's just trying to prove himself, she said. You were pretty big to follow, Dad. I wasn't big, I said. I was stubborn. You were safe, she said. He grew up safe. He doesn't know what it costs to make something safe. I sat in the dark living room with the TV off and listened to the house once more. My knees ached. My heart ached a little, too. Pride can ache. It sits close to fear, and sometimes they share a cup of coffee and swap stories. On the 1st of September, our bank called. The caller ID made my stomach turn like bad milk. Tom, the manager said in a careful tone, this is routine, but we'd like to schedule a touch base about your line of credit. Talk to Ethan, I said. He's CEO. We called him, too, the manager said. We're just being thorough. Thorough is a word people use when they think something might be wrong, but don't want to say it on the phone. That afternoon, I sat at the little desk in the corner of my old office and opened the file drawer that still had my name on it. On the bottom shelf is a manila envelope I packed the week I stepped down. I called it seatbelts. Inside was a plan I'd built, quietly, after the bank scare years back. It wasn't a trap. It was a seatbelt. It said that if certain numbers moved in certain ways, if the accounts payable aged in a pattern that looked like someone painting over mildew, if purchase orders jumped while margins dipped the wrong kind of dip, a surprise audit would trigger. I'd written it with the old CFO. The board had approved it because nobody thinks they'll ever need a seatbelt until the car slides. I'd forgotten about that plan until the bank called. 3 weeks later, early Monday, Andrew Price walked through our door with his folder. The plan had become a person with gray hair and a careful voice. He sat across from me now, turning that page like he was opening a door to a room he had already seen. Ethan stood behind me, his breath steady but not calm. I could feel him wanting to say 100 things. He said none of them. The old receptionist watched from her desk with her hands pressed flat like she was praying. Andrew tapped the paper. We found duplicate vendors, he said, voice even. Same mailing address, different names. He slid a sheet to Ethan. We found wire transfers just under approval thresholds, repeated over months. He slid a sheet to me. We found marketing invoices paid to a company that does not exist at the Secretary of State. Ethan's voice cracked like a board under too much weight. That's impossible. Nothing is impossible where money and hurry meet, Andrew said, not unkindly. Then he looked at me. And none of it is random. Avery, who had come in late with a latte and a soft scarf, stood in the doorway now. She saw the suits. She saw Ethan's face. Her hand went to her mouth. She took one step in and then stopped, like the floor might break if she moved too fast. I looked at my son. He looked at the papers. I saw his cheeks flush, then drain. He glanced at me again. A small look, like a boy who fell off a bike and doesn't want to cry but wants to be held anyway. Where does this lead? I asked, because someone had to ask and my voice still worked. Andrew clasped his hands. It leads to a pattern of control failures at best, he said softly. At worst, it leads to fraud. The word hung there, fraud, like a sharp hook on a thin line. I would like to see your emails with the new CFO, Andrew said to Ethan, and I'll need your approval for bank subpoenas. We're freezing certain disbursements now. Freezing? Ethan whispered, like the word itself was winter. Standard practice to preserve records, Andrew said. While we do that, I'd like you both to step into the conference room. There's something you need to see. He stood. The papers stayed on the desk like a small, quiet storm. We followed him down the hallway. The building felt different. The walls, the floor, the way the light fell through the blinds. Everything had changed 1 inch to the left. We passed the break room. Pam's hand trembled over her coffee cup. Luis looked at the floor like it had answers. Rick's jaw was a locked door. The warehouse hum had turned into a whisper. In the glass-walled conference room, Andrew set down a laptop. He clicked a file open. A spreadsheet filled the screen, rows of dates, amounts, vendor names that looked honest enough if you didn't squint. He tapped a cell. It opened an image, a signature, elegant and sure. My signature. Except it wasn't. I stared at it. The loops were mine. The tail on the R tried to be mine and almost made it. Almost is a dangerous word. Mr. Reed, Andrew said quietly. Did you authorize this? No, I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady. I did not. Ethan's hand gripped the back of a chair so hard the wood complained. He swallowed. He turned to me, then to Andrew, then back to the screen. His face did something I have only seen twice in his life. It asked for help without words. Andrew clicked again. Another image. Another signature. Another Thomas Reed, leaning right, pretending to be me. The building went so quiet I could hear the ice maker in the break room spit cubes down a plastic chute 2 rooms away. My heart did the thing it does before a storm. The slow, careful beats, like it doesn't want to scare anyone. Andrew closed the laptop halfway and looked up. Gentlemen, he said, we have to step very carefully from here. A door opened somewhere down the hall. Quick feet. A phone ringing. The heat kicked on and blew cold air, as if the building itself had forgotten how to breathe warm. Andrew lifted the laptop again and pointed with his pen to the corner of the screen where a small icon blinked. There's one more file, he said. It explains a lot. But before I show it to you, I need you both to understand something. Once you see this, there isn't a way to pretend you didn't. He clicked. The screen flashed. Avery's coffee cup slipped from her hand and hit the carpet with a soft thud that still sounded like thunder in that quiet room. Ethan took one step back, bumping the glass wall with his shoulder. The glass trembled. So did he. Andrew leaned in. Do you recognize this account name? Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. His confidence, those hot, bright words he loved, had gone somewhere else. Fear had its hands on his shoulders now. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed far away, then closer. And in the conference room, my son looked at the screen with eyes that finally saw what he hadn't wanted to see. Mr. Reed, Andrew said to me, very gently now, I need you to sit down. I didn't. I put my hand on the back of the chair instead. The wood was solid. It had weight. It reminded me of all the heavy things I've lifted and all the ones I still could. Andrew took a breath like a man about to announce a storm warning to a small town. The next thing you're going to hear, he said, will change everything. The door to the conference room swung open fast, and a uniformed officer stepped inside. The officer's shoes made a crisp sound on the tile. Everyone in the conference room went still. Even the air stopped moving. He was tall, maybe mid-40s, with a serious face and a badge that caught the light when he moved. Detective Harris, he said, nodding politely to Andrew, then to me, then to Ethan. I'm here regarding an urgent matter tied to the ongoing audit of Reed and Sons. Ethan's lips parted, but nothing came out. Avery clutched her scarf with both hands. Andrew spoke first. Detective, this is Thomas Reed, founder and board chair, and his son Ethan, the current CEO. I've just briefed them on our preliminary findings. The detective's tone stayed calm, but carried a weight that made my stomach twist. Mr. Reed, he looked at Ethan, your CFO, Daniel Moore, was taken into custody this morning for questioning. We have reasons to believe several accounts connected to him were funneling money from your company into private holdings. Ethan blinked fast, like his brain was buffering. That can't be right. Daniel's been running all our new contracts. Detective Harris cut in, not unkindly. He has, including a shell vendor under your name. The room gasped quietly. My name, Ethan said, voice cracking. Yes, Harris replied. Bank records show electronic authorizations under your credentials. Whether or not you personally approve them is what we're here to determine. Avery sank into a chair, whispering, "Oh my God." Andrew folded his arms. Detective, we were just about to show Mr. Reed a document suggesting forged signatures, possibly part of the same pattern. Then you'll understand why we had to come now, Harris said. He turned to me. Mr. Thomas Reed, I'd like to assure you you're not under investigation. In fact, your prior compliance safeguards are what triggered this entire audit. You may have saved your company. I nodded slowly, the words taking a moment to land. Save the company, but maybe not my son. Ethan stood motionless, jaw tight, eyes darting between us. I didn't steal anything, he said, louder now, desperate. Dad, you know me. You know I wouldn't. I know what you wouldn't mean to do, I said quietly. But sometimes meaning isn't enough. That sentence seemed to hit him harder than anything else in the room. The detective continued, Mr. Ethan Reed, we're not making arrests at this point, but we will need your cooperation and immediate access to your devices and email accounts. Ethan's phone buzzed on the table. He stared at it, but didn't pick it up. Avery reached for his hand. He pulled away slightly, not in anger, but in shame. Andrew closed his folder. We'll pause the review until the forensic accountants arrive. I recommend full transparency from this moment on. The detective left with Andrew to coordinate. The door closed. Silence fell like dust after demolition. Ethan exhaled sharply and leaned against the wall. He set me up, he muttered. Daniel must have used my logins. He knew I trusted him. Then prove it, I said. Cooperate. Don't hide. Don't delete anything. He looked up at me. Dad, did you know the audit would happen? I took a long breath. I built that system years ago, in case something like this ever went wrong. His face fell. So you didn't trust me. I trusted you, I said. But I also trusted life to test you. And I trusted that when it did, the truth would come out, one way or another. He pressed his palms to his eyes. God, I thought I was doing everything right. Expanding. Modernizing. You were moving fast, I said. But sometimes when you run, you don't see the holes in the ground. He laughed bitterly. You think I'm like those tech kids with fake numbers? I think you're my son, I said. And I think you wanted to impress ghosts that were already proud of you. His eyes went red. Mom. I nodded. He sank into a chair. The loud, confident man from the company posts was gone. In his place sat a boy with too much pressure on his back. Hours passed. The auditors packed up for the day. Employees whispered in corners. The story spread like wind through dry grass. By noon, the rumor had reached every desk. The boss's son is in trouble. Outside, the fall sky turned gray. The parking lot emptied one car at a time. I stayed. So did Ethan. He stared at the ceiling. Dad, if the auditors find I signed something without checking properly, even if I didn't profit, they'll say I'm negligent. That'll ruin me. Then fix what you can, I said. Start by telling the truth to everyone who deserves it. He nodded slowly. Maybe I should call the board. You should, I said. Tonight. He wiped his face with his sleeve. Do you still believe I can fix this? I thought of the day he was born, the first time I held him. Red, angry, tiny fists punching the air like the world owed him something. I thought of teaching him to ride a bike, how he kept falling until one day he didn't. I believe you can learn from this, I said. Whether you fix it, that's up to what you're willing to lose first. He didn't answer. He just stared at his hands. Later that night, Avery came to my house with James. The little boy ran into my arms. Grandpa, Daddy's sad. Mom says he just needs rest. I held him tight. He's learning something important, I said softly. Avery sat at the kitchen table, eyes tired. He didn't sleep. He's terrified, Tom. I know, I said. He should be. She looked at me sharply. You sound like you're not even angry. Aren't you furious he nearly lost everything? I admitted. Then I remembered, when you plant a seed, you don't get to choose which storms it survives. You just pray it learns to grow roots before the wind hits. Tears welled in her eyes. Do you think this will destroy him? No, I said, but it might rebuild him. That week, the auditors discovered the shell vendor's registered address. It was a rented suite in downtown Chicago, under the name Eastgate Consulting. Records showed monthly transfers disguised as marketing expenses, over $200,000 in total. On Friday morning, Detective Harris returned. This time, his tone was heavier. Mr. Reed, he told Ethan, we've confirmed your CFO forged multiple approvals. But we also found email exchanges between him and your personal account. Messages where you discussed moving funds to speed up campaign processing. Can you explain those? Ethan's face drained of color. Those were drafts, he stammered. He told me that's how big firms handle payments, temporary holding accounts. I didn't. Intent is part of what we'll evaluate, Harris said gently. But for now, I'll need you to come with us for formal questioning. Avery gasped. You're arresting him? Not arresting. Questioning, Harris repeated, though his voice carried the gravity of a man who'd said this before. I stood behind Ethan. He turned once, eyes meeting mine, silently begging for something. Help, forgiveness, maybe both. I said quietly, go with them, son. Tell the truth. Every piece of it. He nodded faintly and followed the detective out. When the door closed, the sound echoed like a final bell. The warehouse windows shook slightly from passing trucks, and I felt the same vibration in my chest, grief mixed with strange calm. Rick approached slowly. Tom, what happens now? I looked out the glass toward the loading bay. Workers moved slower than usual, glancing up at the offices. What happens now, I said, is we make sure everyone still gets paid Friday, and we start cleaning up the mess. Rick nodded. He's lucky you didn't fight him when he took over. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I let him take it so he'd finally learn what it costs to hold something too heavy. That night, alone in my house, I sat at the same kitchen table where this all began. The clock ticked loud. I poured coffee even though it was midnight. On the wall, a framed picture of my wife smiled softly. I whispered, you were right, Linda. Sometimes kindness looks like weakness. But it's not. I stared at the photo of Ethan on my shelf, him in college, grinning with his cap tilted sideways. He's paying for his pride now, I said. But maybe pride's the only teacher some people listen to. Outside, a storm began. Wind hit the windows, rattling the panes. I stayed up listening to it, thinking of the warehouse, of the audit, of my son sitting in a gray room somewhere answering questions he never imagined would come. Somewhere between the thunder, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you won, old man? You have no idea what he's capable of. No name. No signature. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back 2 words. Who's this? No reply. The wind howled louder. Somewhere, a tree branch hit the roof. I rose, checked the locks, then looked once more at my phone. And that was the night I realized the storm wasn't over. It was just moving closer. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing before sunrise. The sky outside my window was still gray-blue, the kind of color that warns you the day won't be easy. I answered on the second ring. Mr. Reed, it was Detective Harris. His voice sounded heavier, slower. Your son's being released for now. We verified he didn't create the shell company. But there's more we need to discuss, privately. My throat tightened. Privately. Yes, sir, he said. We'll meet at your office in an hour. By the time I arrived, the parking lot was already half full. Employees were moving like shadows, quieter, slower, avoiding eye contact. They'd all heard something. News travels faster than truth in places like this. When I walked in, Avery was sitting in the reception area. Her hair was messy, eyes red from crying all night. He didn't sleep, she said softly. He kept saying, I just wanted to prove I could handle it, Tom. He's broken. I put my hand on her shoulder. Let him break. Sometimes it's the only way people grow back right. She nodded, trying to believe me. Detective Harris and Andrew were already waiting in the conference room when I walked in. Harris stood by the window, hands behind his back. Andrew had that folder again, thicker this time. Mr. Reed, Andrew said, we've been up most of the night reviewing the documents. There's something new. Harris turned toward me. You might want to sit for this. I didn't. I just crossed my arms and waited. Andrew opened the folder and pulled out a series of color-printed photographs. These are screenshots from the bank's security system. Wire transfers initiated under your son's administrative access. But look at this. He pointed to the login timestamps. They don't match your company's office hours. They were made between 2 and 3 a.m. from a location in Michigan. I frowned. Michigan? We don't even have branches there. Harris nodded. Exactly. The IP address traces back to a private network owned by a firm called Carrington Holdings. Does that name mean anything to you? I shook my head. No. Andrew glanced at Harris. Carrington Holdings, he said slowly, is connected to a real estate investment group that's been trying to acquire your warehouse for years. My chest tightened. I remembered their letters, offers that I'd torn up before Ethan took over. They made several attempts, I said. We refused. They wanted the land, not the business. Andrew spread out the next set of documents. Well, someone inside Reed and Sons reopened the negotiations. The offer was accepted, electronically, 6 weeks ago. What? Yes, he said, for $3 million. And according to these signatures, he looked up, expression grim. It was authorized by your son. I felt the room tilt. The air left my lungs all at once. That's not possible. Andrew sighed. We know, because the funds never went into your company account. They were redirected to an offshore intermediary, the same account tied to the fraudulent vendor. Harris stepped forward. We believe your CFO and an external party used your son's trust and access to close the sale. But the timing and the communication trail suggests someone else on the inside helped them. Someone else? Yes, Harris said. Someone who still works here. I stared through the glass wall at the office floor. Clerks typing, phones ringing, people moving in that same old rhythm. And somewhere among them, a traitor. Avery's voice cracked. You're saying there's another person? Andrew nodded. And we think that person is erasing records as we speak. Just then, one of the auditors burst into the room, breathless. Sir, we lost access to the finance server. Someone's locked us out remotely. Andrew grabbed his laptop. Harris was already pulling out his phone. Shut down the Wi-Fi, he ordered. I ran to the hall. Rick, I shouted. Pull the main power for the finance floor, now. Rick didn't even ask questions. He hit the breaker. Half the building went dark. Phones died. Computers froze mid-screen. Give me a printout of the last 30 transactions before the lockout, Andrew said. We need to see who is still logged in. Pam, the nervous clerk, ran over with a trembling hand holding a printed list. It was Daniel's account, she said, but he's in custody. Then someone's using his credentials, Harris said. Andrew scanned the list, then stopped. His eyes widened. There's another login under an alias, Reed_archive. He looked at me. That's Avery's email extension. Avery froze. What? Harris looked up slowly. Ma'am, have you ever accessed your husband's system? No, she whispered. I don't even know how. I'm not part of the business. Andrew turned the paper toward her. This login was active 20 minutes ago, from your home IP address. Avery shook her head, stepping back. No, that can't be me. I was here with you. Is there anyone else who could have used your computer? Harris asked. Her face went pale. James, she whispered. But he's just 8. Anyone else? She hesitated. My brother. He's been staying with us the past few weeks. Said he was looking for work. He used the guest room, and my laptop sometimes. Harris's eyes narrowed. What's his name? Adam. Adam Blake. Andrew flipped through the documents again, face turning white. Wait a minute, that name. He grabbed one of the older vendor forms and pointed. The B in Blake matches the signature on half the fraudulent invoices. The room went silent. I exhaled sharply. So Adam's working with Daniel? Looks that way, Harris said. And if the IP from Michigan connects, he might be more than just a helper. He could be the one pulling the strings. Avery covered her mouth, tears spilling over. Oh my God. Tom, I didn't know. I put a hand on her shoulder again. I know you didn't. Evil doesn't always walk through the front door. Sometimes it sneaks in carrying groceries. Harris nodded toward his phone. We're tracing his location now. If he's smart, he's already running. But he wasn't running. Not yet. That evening, just before the police left, a delivery truck arrived at the warehouse. No one had ordered anything. The driver said it was addressed to Thomas Reed. Inside the box was a single black folder. No return address. No company name. I opened it carefully. Inside was a photo, grainy, printed from security footage. It showed Adam standing in my office at night, flipping through my old paper files. Underneath the photo was a handwritten note in red ink. "You built an empire of trust. Now watch who burns it." There was also a small USB drive taped to the corner. Andrew frowned. "Don't plug that into any company system. It could be a virus or a data bomb." "I won't," I said, slipping it into my pocket. After everyone left, I sat alone in that same office, lights dim, rain tapping against the glass. My son was home on probation, broken and humiliated. My daughter-in-law was crying herself sick over her brother. And someone out there wanted me to see this coming. I stared at that USB drive for a long time. My heart said don't touch it. But my instincts, the same ones that built this business from nothing, said open it, Tom. So I drove home, locked the doors, pulled out my old laptop, one that had never touched the company's network, and slid the USB in. A single file appeared on the screen. read_truth.mp4. My pulse quickened. I double-clicked. The screen flickered. And then, a video began to play. It was footage from inside the warehouse, weeks ago. The camera angle showed Ethan's office. He was sitting at his desk, signing papers. Behind him, the door opened quietly. Adam walked in, and in his hand was a flash drive. Ethan didn't see him. He stood, watching for a few seconds, then slipped the flash drive into Ethan's computer when he turned away to answer a call. Ethan looked up when he heard a click. Adam smiled. Then he left. The video froze on Adam's smirk, calm, confident, deliberate. And at the bottom of the frame, the timestamp glowed. July 14 to 2:06 a.m. The same night the first fraudulent transfer had been made. My chest went cold. My hands shook. I replayed it twice, just to be sure. It wasn't deep fake. It was real. And then I noticed something else. A shadow moving in the reflection on the glass door behind Adam. A second figure. Watching. Someone else was there. Someone who knew everything from the start. And just as I leaned closer to see their face, the video cut to black. Then white text appeared on the screen, one line at a time. "You still think it's about money? It's about what you did 25 years ago." My breath caught in my throat. "What I did," I whispered. The video ended. Outside, lightning flashed. And in that flash, through my window, I could swear I saw someone standing across the street, still, waiting, before disappearing into the rain. The past I thought I buried was digging itself back up. And this time, it wasn't coming from my business. It was coming from my family. I didn't sleep that night. The words from that video, "It's about what you did 25 years ago," echoed in my skull until sunrise. By morning, the rain had stopped, but everything still looked wet, like the world hadn't dried from the storm. I brewed coffee, but it tasted like metal. My reflection in the window looked older than I remembered. 25 years ago. I ran through the timeline in my head. That would have been 2000, the year Reed and Sons was nearly bankrupt. The year I made a deal that saved us, but not everyone. And suddenly, I knew exactly what they meant. I called Detective Harris before my courage could fade. "We need to meet. There's more to this than money." He arrived within an hour, along with Andrew. I showed them the USB and the video, replaying the scene of Adam in the office, the flash drive, the text at the end. When it ended, Harris leaned forward. "What happened 25 years ago, Mr. Reed?" I took a deep breath. Something I thought was buried with the past. I poured the truth out slowly. Back then, I was desperate. Reed and Sons was drowning in debt. My wife had just been diagnosed, and I was too proud to admit we couldn't pay for her treatments. So I made a deal with a small logistics firm called Carrington Transport. Andrew frowned. "The same name as the holding company trying to buy you now?" "Yes," I said. "Different name, same roots." They agreed to invest in exchange for a silent partnership. But I didn't know they were laundering money through the deal. When the feds cracked down a year later, their CEO, John Carrington, took the fall. I got to keep my business because I gave them evidence. I stared down at my hands. I testified against him in exchange for immunity. I told myself I did it for my family, for the workers, for survival. But Carrington lost everything. His company, his home. He died in prison 10 years later. Andrew's jaw tightened. "And you think Adam, Avery's brother, has something to do with that?" "I don't think," I said. "I know." Harris glanced at his notes. "We pulled Adam Blake's record. He changed his last name at 21. His birth name was Adam Carrington." The room went silent. "He's John Carrington's son." The air left my lungs. I leaned back in my chair, the old leather creaking under my weight. So this was never about money. It was revenge. Andrew nodded slowly. He used your son's trust to ruin you the same way his father was ruined. Only, I said bitterly. He wanted to make me watch it happen through my own bloodline. Harris stood. We'll put out a warrant. But if he's smart, he's long gone. He's not, I said. He wants me to see it. He's still here. Later that day, I went to see Ethan. He was sitting in the living room, pale and hollow-eyed, staring at a blank TV screen. Avery was upstairs resting. James was at school. I sat down beside him. Dad, he said softly. They said Adam might have been behind everything. Is that true? Yes. He rubbed his face. Why us? Because of me, I said. Because of something I did before you were old enough to know what bills even were. He turned toward me. Then why didn't you just tell me? Because I was ashamed, I said simply. I built this company on hard work. Yes, but also on a lie I've been carrying for decades. I told myself I did it to protect this family. But sin doesn't stay buried, son. It always finds a shovel. He swallowed hard. So he's trying to destroy us for revenge? Yes, I said. And he's doing it slowly, just like his father's ruin came slow to me. Ethan's hands curled into fists. Then we stop him. I smiled faintly. Now you sound like the man I raised. That evening, I met with Harris again at the station. He showed me stills from traffic cameras. Your daughter-in-law's brother rented a car yesterday morning under a fake ID. We traced it to a motel outside of town. Then what are we waiting for? I said. We can't move without a warrant, he said. But if you're willing to help, maybe we can lure him out. I raised an eyebrow. How? Harris smirked slightly. He seems to enjoy showing off, doesn't he? Let's give him a reason to come to you. So we did. That night, Ethan posted an announcement on the company's social media. Reed and Sons will make a public statement tomorrow at noon to address all false rumors and reveal the truth. The goal was simple, to bait Adam into acting before he could vanish. We waited, and just before midnight, it happened. I was at home, lights low, staring at old papers when I heard glass shatter in the back room. I grabbed the flashlight and the small pistol I kept in the drawer since Linda passed. Footsteps creaked across the floor. Adam, I said quietly, you picked the wrong house. A voice came from the dark, calm and mocking. You always were good at pretending to be brave, Mr. Reed. He stepped into the dim light. The same face from the video. Taller in person, sharper jaw, calm eyes that burned too steady. You look just like your father, I said. He smirked. And you look just as guilty as you did on the stand. He took a slow step forward. Do you remember what you said that day? You said, a man has to do what's right, even if it hurts someone. My father played that recording for me every day until he died. His voice cracked slightly. He died believing you were a hero. He told me to see what kind of hero you'd be when everything you loved turned to dust. I kept the gun low, hidden by my side. Your father made his own choices. I made mine. We both paid our price. No, he said, eyes narrowing. You didn't pay. You prospered. He rotted. Then why go after Ethan? I asked. He was just a child. Because he's your legacy, Adam hissed. And I wanted you to watch it crumble with your name on it. He reached into his coat. I raised my gun instantly. Don't, I said. He froze, smirk still in place. Relax, old man. He pulled out a small flash drive, the same kind as before, and placed it on the table. What's that? Proof, he said. Proof that your company was built on fraud from day one. All the files you thought you destroyed 25 years ago. I rebuilt them. Every signed deal, every false ledger, every lie you sold the feds. You think you're clean? You're not. I didn't blink. Then why bring it to me? Because, he said, leaning closer, you'll destroy yourself better than I ever could. Then he turned toward the door. Adam, I called. He paused. You hate me for killing your father's dream, I said. But look what you've become. You're him now, blinded by rage, destroying your own future just to hurt someone else's past. For a brief second, I saw something flicker in his face, doubt, pain, maybe both. Then it was gone. He smiled coldly. You always were good with words, Mr. Reed. Let's see if they save you this time. He left without another word. When the door closed, I locked it and slumped into the nearest chair. My hands trembled as I looked at the flash drive on the table. Another choice. Another storm. I could destroy it, or I could see the truth inside. I picked it up. It felt heavier than it should. The label read, Everything you hid. I stared at it for a long time, knowing that whatever I saw next could destroy everything, or finally set me free. So I slid it into my old laptop. The screen blinked, and thousands of old documents appeared, contracts, letters, signed statements. But in the middle of them was one file, labeled simply, Linda. My heart stopped. I clicked it. A scanned letter appeared, written in my wife's handwriting. The date was July 2000. Tom, I know what you're about to do. I know about the deal. Please don't. God can rebuild what money can't. Don't trade your soul for this business. It will come back one day, and it will destroy our son. Tears blurred my vision. That was the night she went into the hospital. The last week she ever spoke clearly before the cancer took her voice. She'd known. She tried to stop me. And now, 25 years later, her prophecy was coming true. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to the empty house. You were right, Linda. Outside, a car engine started. I looked through the window, but there was no car in the driveway. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think it's over? Tomorrow, everyone learns who you really are. And attached below it was a live video link. The timestamp said 11:58 a.m. Exactly 2 minutes before the public press conference Ethan had just announced. Whatever Adam planned next wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about exposure. And this time, he wanted the entire world to watch. Morning came fast, but it felt slow, like time itself was stalling to watch what would happen next. The sky was a dull, unforgiving gray. I hadn't slept. Neither had Ethan. He was sitting at the kitchen table, hair disheveled, clutching his coffee cup like it was keeping him alive. His phone was buzzing nonstop. Board members, news reporters, employees, all asking the same question. What's going on? The press conference was scheduled for noon. It wasn't supposed to be anything big, just an internal broadcast stream from the warehouse office. But now, with that mysterious message and the video link, it felt like walking straight into a trap. At 10:47 a.m., Detective Harris called. Mr. Reed, he said, we traced the signal from that message. It's being routed through a VPN, but the originating tower is local, about 4 miles from your main warehouse. My pulse quickened. Then he's close. Closer than you think, Harris said grimly. We're moving in quietly, but if he tries to make this public, we may not be able to contain it. I looked over at Ethan. Cancel the conference. He shook his head. No. If we cancel, he wins. Everyone already thinks we're hiding something. Ethan, this isn't about PR anymore, I said. This man is dangerous. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then let him come. I saw it in his eyes. The same fire I used to have when I was younger, the kind that makes men reckless. But this time, it wasn't pride. It was guilt. He wanted to make things right. So I didn't stop him. We drove to the warehouse together. Cameras were already being set up in the conference room. Reporters were gathering outside the gate. It was strange, seeing my company, my life's work, turn into a crime scene and a stage all at once. At 11:50, Harris and 2 officers arrived, blending into the background in plain clothes. They had vans positioned nearby, ready to trace any signal if Adam tried to stream the video live. Ethan adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and looked at me. You stand beside me when I speak. Always, I said. At 11:56, the screen in front of us flickered. A notification appeared. Incoming live stream. Source, Reed and Sons internal network. Andrew, who was manning the laptop, cursed under his breath. He's in the system. The feed went full screen automatically, black at first, then a static hum. And then Adam appeared. He was standing in a dimly lit room. Brick walls, a metal chair, boxes stacked behind him. He looked calm, almost polished, like he'd rehearsed this moment. Good morning, America, he said. This is the truth your favorite family business didn't want you to know. The crowd outside murmured. Reporters started filming the broadcast on their phones. Adam continued. Thomas Reed, the man you all see as a self-made businessman, built his empire on lies. He betrayed my father, John Carrington, framed him for fraud, and took everything from our family. Today, his son runs the same corrupt empire. Like father, like son. The room erupted in noise, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, phones ringing. Ethan froze. His face went white. Cut the feed, Harris ordered. Andrew tried, but the keyboard wouldn't respond. The screen flashed again, and now it showed something worse. Scanned documents, Fake bank transfers, my old testimony. It was everything from that flash drive, every sin I'd buried. Dad, Ethan whispered, voice trembling. Is any of this true? I looked at him, my son, my blood, and I couldn't lie anymore. Yes, I said quietly, but not all the way he tells it. Adam's voice came back through the speakers. You see, heroes aren't real. They're just cowards who learned how to hide their crimes. Then the video glitched. For a second, the screen split, showing two feeds at once. One was Adam in his hideout. The other was a live camera inside our warehouse. I saw it first, a shadow moving near the server room door. He's here, I whispered. He's inside. Harris and the officers bolted out of the room. I grabbed Ethan's arm. Stay behind me. We ran down the hallway. The air felt heavier with every step. The buzzing sound of the server fans grew louder, a deep mechanical heartbeat echoing through the walls. When we reached the server room, the door was slightly open. The lights inside flickered. Harris raised his gun. Adam, step out with your hands where I can see them. For a moment, nothing. Then Adam's voice, calm as ever. You really think I'd make it that easy? A sound, a beep beep beep, started coming from one of the racks. Andrew rushed in and froze. Oh no, he planted a timed upload. What kind? Harris barked. Live data stream, Andrew said, fingers flying across the keyboard. It's transferring everything, all company archives, bank accounts, emails, to public servers. Once it finishes, the whole world will have it. How long? 3 minutes. I stepped forward. Pull the power. Andrew hesitated. If I do that, we lose everything, even legitimate records. Do it, I said. Better we lose everything than let him burn it all. He looked at Harris. Harris nodded. Do it. Andrew flipped the main switch. The lights flickered, then darkness. For a moment, the warehouse was dead silent. Then, from the shadows, a voice whispered, too slow. Adam lunged from behind a rack, shoving Andrew aside. The officers raised their weapons, but he ducked fast, kicking a tool card into one of them. A shot went off, hitting the wall. Ethan shouted, Adam, stop. Adam turned toward him, eyes full of something between hate and heartbreak. You still don't get it, do you? Your father destroyed mine, and now he's going to lose you too. Before anyone could react, he pulled a small remote from his pocket and slammed the button. A sharp alarm filled the room, not an upload timer this time, but a fire alert. Thick smoke began pouring from a vent near the back. He's triggered the emergency suppression system. Andrew yelled. It'll flood the room with CO2 in 60 seconds. Everyone scrambled. Harris tackled Adam, pinning him down. The officers cuffed him while the alarms blared. I grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to get out. But Ethan stopped. The drives, they're still running backups. If they're not shut down properly, we'll lose everything for good. Forget the drives, son. He shook his head. No, not this time. I won't let your work die because of my mistake. Before I could stop him, he ran back toward the servers. Smoke was filling the room. My lungs burned. I tried to go after him, but Harris grabbed my shoulder. You can't go in there. Let me go, I yelled. Then I heard it. Ethan's voice, coughing, struggling, and then a crash. Seconds later, the fire suppression system activated. White mist burst from the vents, swallowing everything. Harris pulled me out as the system sealed the doors automatically. Ethan, I screamed, pounding on the glass. Ethan, the mist inside cleared slowly. And then I saw him, slumped against the wall, one hand still on the server switch. The lights were dead. The system was silent. He'd stopped the upload. But he wasn't moving. Hours later, the chaos quieted. Adam was taken away in handcuffs, muttering something I couldn't hear. Harris stayed with me as they loaded Ethan into an ambulance. He was alive, barely, but the doctors said the smoke damage was severe. As they closed the doors, I whispered through the small opening. You did it, son. You saved us. The doors shut. The next day, the news broke. Family business scandal ends in fire. CEO hospitalized. Hacker arrested. But that's not the story people remember. What they remember is what came after. Ethan recovered, slowly. His lungs will never be the same, but his heart changed in ways mine didn't until too late. We rebuilt Reed and Sons from the ground up. We sold what we had to pay the debts and started smaller, cleaner, honest. I resigned completely and handed him the reins again, not out of guilt this time, but trust. Real trust. A year later, we opened a new branch under a new name, Read Renewal Company. The slogan, Ethan's idea, sits under the sign in blue letters, built on truth. As for Adam Carrington, he's serving 15 years. But sometimes, when I visit my wife's grave, I wonder if he was right about one thing. Maybe I didn't pay enough for my choices. Maybe some debts don't get settled in money, or even in court. Sometimes, punishment is living long enough to see who you could have been, if only you'd chosen right the first time. Still, I thank God every day for second chances. Because when the auditors arrived that morning 6 months ago, I thought my life was ending. But what I didn't know was that it was just beginning, finally built, not on pride, but on truth. And that's something worth keeping.